The United States Supreme Court, often seen as the final arbiter of the nation's most pressing legal questions, once again found itself at the center of a heated national debate this week. Its imposing marble columns and storied halls have witnessed countless landmark decisions, and now, another chapter has been added to its history. The court sent a clear and unmistakable message to the country, one that reverberated far beyond the walls of the courtroom. The sound of the gavel echoed not just in Washington, D.C., but across every state, signaling a pivotal moment in the ongoing struggle over states' rights and federal authority. On October 6, 2025, the justices, in a 6-3 decision, declined to take up Missouri's appeal. This decision, while procedural on its face, carried significant weight. The court's refusal to hear the case effectively ended Missouri's legal battle, leaving the lower court's ruling intact and sending a strong signal about the boundaries of state power. Missouri had sought to revive its controversial Second Amendment Preservation Act, a law designed to nullify nearly all federal gun regulations within the state's borders. The act was a bold assertion of state sovereignty, reflecting deep-seated tensions between state and federal governments over gun rights and regulation. Supporters argued it was a necessary defense of constitutional freedoms, while critics warned it threatened the very fabric of federal law. The Supreme Court's refusal to intervene wasn't a direct ruling on the Second Amendment itself, nor did it address the merits of Missouri's law. Instead, it was a powerful statement about the structure of American law and the supremacy of federal statutes over conflicting state measures. The decision underscored the principle that states cannot simply disregard federal law, no matter how passionately they may disagree. By turning away the appeal, the court allowed the lower court's decision, which struck down Missouri's law, to stand. In doing so, the justices reaffirmed a core constitutional principle, that the federal government's laws are the supreme law of the land, and states must abide by them, even on contentious issues like gun rights. The decision has ignited passionate debate across the nation. In town halls, on social media, and in the halls of Congress, Americans are once again grappling with questions about the limits of state power, the reach of federal authority, and the future of gun rights in the United States. For gun rights advocates, the court's inaction feels like a profound betrayal, especially coming from a bench with a conservative majority. Many had hoped the justices would seize the opportunity to reinforce states' rights and push back against what they see as federal overreach. Instead, they are left questioning the court's commitment to protecting the Second Amendment. The Supreme Court's refusal to consider the case has left supporters of Missouri's law feeling abandoned and outraged. For them, this moment is not just a legal setback, but a rallying cry, a call to redouble their efforts in the ongoing battle over gun rights and the balance of power between the states and the federal government. At the heart of Missouri's legal battle lies a fundamental question about the very structure of American government. Who holds the ultimate authority when state and federal laws collide? This question is not just a matter of legal theory. It strikes at the core of how the United States functions as a nation of laws, and how the delicate balance between state sovereignty and federal power is maintained. Central to this debate is the Supremacy Clause of the U.S. Constitution, found in Article 6. This clause was designed by the founders to ensure that the Constitution, and the laws made under its authority, would always take precedence over any conflicting state laws. Article 6, Clause 2, often called the linchpin of the federal system, declares that federal law is the supreme law of the land. This means that no matter how passionately a state may feel about a particular issue, its laws cannot override those of the federal government. This constitutional safeguard ensures that when state and federal laws are at odds, federal law prevails, preserving national unity and preventing a patchwork of conflicting rules across the country. The Justice Department's lawsuit against Missouri was built on this very doctrine, arguing that Missouri's attempt to nullify federal gun regulations was not just a local dispute, but a direct challenge to the constitutional order. Missouri's law, known as the Second Amendment Preservation Act, challenged this principle head-on. State officials argued that certain federal gun regulations were unconstitutional, and therefore, Missouri was not bound to enforce or recognize them under the Supremacy Clause. But this radical interpretation would upend the established order, effectively allowing each state to decide for itself what is or isn't constitutional, a power that the Constitution reserves for the federal judiciary, not for individual states or their legislatures. If adopted, such a view would transform the Supremacy Clause from a binding rule into a mere suggestion, threatening the very foundation of federal authority and the unity of the nation's legal system. To grasp the outrage, we must look at Missouri's Second Amendment Preservation Act, or SAPA. Signed in 2021, it was one of the most aggressive pro-gun, states' rights laws in the country. The law declared many federal gun regulations invalid within Missouri. It aimed to create a sanctuary for gun owners, free from national oversight. Most controversially, it barred state and local officials from helping enforce federal gun laws, threatening agencies with hefty fines for violations. Essentially, SAPA sought to dismantle federal gun control in Missouri. The Supreme Court's decision has sparked fury among gun owners and advocacy groups. For them, Missouri's law was a necessary defense against federal overreach. The court's refusal to hear the case is seen as a blow to their cause and an endorsement of federal gun control. Many feel betrayed by a judiciary they expected to defend their rights. They argue this decision leaves states powerless to resist federal laws they see as unconstitutional. The Justice Department has maintained a consistent stance throughout this legal saga. The Biden administration first sued Missouri in 2021, calling the law an unconstitutional threat to federal authority and public safety. Federal lawyers argued that states cannot pick and choose which federal laws to follow. This position held firm even after Donald Trump returned to the presidency in 2025. Despite expectations, the Trump administration's Justice Department continued to argue against Missouri's law. The Solicitor General advised the Supreme Court to reject Missouri's appeal. This shows that the supremacy of federal law outweighed partisan politics. The theory behind Missouri's law is rooted in the old doctrine of nullification. This idea, dating back to the late 1700s, claimed states could declare federal laws void within their borders. It was first articulated by Jefferson and Madison in protest of the Alien and Sedition Acts. Nullification reached its peak before the Civil War, especially in South Carolina's fight over federal tariffs. The Civil War ultimately crushed the notion that states could veto federal law. Missouri's SAPA is a modern echo of this failed doctrine. The Supreme Court's decision reaffirms that federal law remains supreme. The Supreme Court's recent decision to reject Missouri's appeal stands out as a significant moment, especially when viewed in the broader context of the court's approach to gun rights. This move wasn't just a routine denial, it sent a message about the boundaries the justices are willing to draw when it comes to the Second Amendment and federal authority. What makes this even more remarkable is the timing. Just days before turning away Missouri's case, the Supreme Court agreed to take up a challenge to Hawaii's strict new gun law, which has been at the center of heated debate. The Hawaii law, passed in the wake of recent Supreme Court rulings, imposes sweeping restrictions on where firearms can be carried in public, sparking controversy and legal challenges from gun rights advocates. This sharp contrast between the court's actions in the Missouri and Hawaii cases highlights its selective engagement with Second Amendment issues. The justices are not treating every gun rights case the same. Instead, they are choosing which legal questions to address and which to leave unresolved. The Missouri case was fundamentally about whether a state could nullify federal gun laws within its borders, a sweeping assertion of state power that the court declined to consider. In contrast, the Hawaii case is about whether a state can impose its own restrictions on carrying firearms in public, and how far those restrictions can go under the Constitution. The Hawaii case directly confronts the legacy of the court's landmark 2022 decision, which dramatically reshaped the legal landscape for gun laws across the country. That 2022 decision, known as New York State Rifle and Pistol Association versus Bruin, set a new and demanding standard. Any gun regulation must be consistent with the nation's historical tradition of firearm regulation. This historical test has forced courts and lawmakers to look back into the past, searching for analogs to modern gun laws and the practices of the 18th and 19th centuries. It's a challenging and often controversial process, as history rarely provides clear answers for today's complex issues. In response to the Bruin decision, states like Hawaii have passed new laws banning guns in a wide range of public places, from beaches and parks to government buildings and public transportation. These measures are designed to test the limits of the Supreme Court's new standard and to keep guns out of sensitive areas. Gun rights advocates have quickly challenged these bans, arguing that they go far beyond what history allows and lack any real historical precedent. The case now before the Supreme Court, Woolford v. Lopez, is a direct confrontation over how much leeway states have to regulate firearms in public. The Supreme Court's willingness to hear the Hawaii case signals its ongoing interest in shaping the future of gun rights in America. The justices seem poised to clarify, and perhaps even expand, the rules they set just 2 years ago. The outcome of this case could have sweeping consequences. potentially redefining how states across the country regulate firearms in public spaces, and setting new boundaries for the Second Amendment in the years to come. The Supreme Court's rejection of Missouri's nullification marks a turning point in the gun debate. It closes the door on state-level defiance, forcing advocates to use traditional legal channels. Federal supremacy is reaffirmed, but deep political and cultural divisions remain. The focus now shifts to the framework and the upcoming Hawaii case. The central question: how much room do states have to regulate guns within historical tradition? The outcome will shape gun laws in many states for years to come.